Once you've ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true.
And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Devon. It is vampirism, and there's a host of damned souls of Pelham House.
Thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night.
Here, the old gods aren't dead.
And what of the true God?
He's dead. Can't complain.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
You're listening to Paranormal UK Radio.
Welcome to Paranormal UK Radio, the flagship show broadcasting on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I'm your host, Irene Allen Block, and with me today is my co-host, Mark Johnson.
Hello.
Mark.
How are you?
I'm fine, and you?
Oh, it's been a peachy week.
It's been sunshine here.
You know, it's been really sunny here, too. Spring is coming in. All the trees are starting to come in. Flowers are popping up. You know, now if we can avoid another Colorado spring snowstorm, I'll be a happy camper.
You do get a very, very amount of weather out there, don't you?
From what
Unlike us, it's rain all year round. But we've had sunshine for the last weekend.
Enjoy it, because you won't have any for the rest of the year now.
Well, it's been sunny today, and I think it's coming back. The rain's coming back for Easter.
So I think all of you living in Wales, you have about 40 different ways to say the word rain, because, you know, it's like Eskimos have like 30 different ways of saying snow. You know, you guys have 30 or 40 different ways of saying rain, because that's all it seems to ever do there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, everything's well watered, I've got to admit that. And like I said, this topology, the scenery here is very, very green.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I know. It is lovely. Anyway, Mark, what have you got to tell us tonight?
We wanted to make an announcement for anybody who happens to be listening, our listeners in the Colorado area, the Colorado Springs, Denver metro area. Since I am representing Sari out here in the U.S., now in the Midwest, this is truly the West.
Do you want to tell everybody what Sari is?
I'm getting to that.
All right.
Would you like to do this instead? Be my guest. Okay. I'll just sit here waiting, patiently twiddling my thumbs. Our group, Sari, that Irene and I run, the Supernatural Analysis and Research Institute. And yes, that's a mouthful, so we just say Sari. We are starting a meetup group here in the Colorado Springs, Denver metro area. If you go to meetup.com, look for Supernatural Analysis and Research Institute, you can find our group. Feel free to sign up, and very soon we're going to be having meetups where we'll be able to meet with people in groups and talk about the paranormal, share ideas, possibly even, show people how to investigate properly, not like they do in the ghost shows. And, find some good paranormal haunted spots around the state. So it's going to be a lot of fun time. And we've already had a bunch of people starting to sign up. So if you go to meetup.com, look for, again, Supernatural Analysis and Research Institute. Yes, that's a mouthful, but you know what? That's who we are. So we look forward to seeing you soon. We'll get some events going soon. So now you got to get one going for your part of the world, Irene.
Don't be silly. People don't do that here.
Why not?
Unfortunately. Yeah, no, unfortunately they don't.
You have all that rich history out there and nobody does it?
Oh, I know.
You need to go back to Clanstefan Castle.
I don't even know if they do meetups here at all. If it's on that actual program, I've got no idea.
Well, you need to get Claire and her sister Lindsay together, and then you guys go down to Clanstefan Castle and do an investigation there.
Oh, yeah, do the investigations. Yeah, there's plenty of places to do investigations, but to try and get people organised in that way, it's not very easy, I'm afraid.
Well, if you have 3 of you, there's a group right there.
I mean, as a meetup.
Oh, okay. Well,
gosh.
You never know
until
you try.
I think it's really good, though. I really do think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah. Well, I've learned a lot with the other meetup groups that I've been attending out here. A lot of the different spiritual groups, near-death experiences, ET experiencers. And in fact, that's how I met tonight's guest, and she gracefully accepted to be on our program tonight. We're happy to welcome Debbie Solaris to the program. How are you tonight, Debbie?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, and I'm super excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you too. And, I had the advantage of actually attending one of your talks a couple of weeks back, and we've talked some since then. And you have a very interesting story, and it's unique in a lot of ways. And I think what we'll do is we'll just start off by, tell us a little bit more about your background before the experiences started. Just give us the Reader's Digest version of Debbie's life.
Okay, well, there's not really much to say. I was just an ordinary, everyday person, just working, happily in a relationship, just, having a family. And I grew up in a conservative Roman Catholic family, and we were, my father was in the military, so we, traveled around the world quite a bit, there during his military career. But we ended up, I think, settling in Colorado, I think back in the 1980s, maybe late 70s. I am also a military veteran. I served in the U.S. Navy for 6 years, and
we thank you for your service.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have a degree in science. As a matter of fact, I worked for a number of years as an environmental specialist. So I didn't really have much in the way of any type of interest or contact with UFOs or extraterrestrials until I met my current husband. He was always interested in UFOs. I had a mild interest, just kind of a curiosity maybe more than an interest, but was not really a believer. I was pretty skeptical up until 2012.
And then what happened in 2012 that changed your mind on all that?
Okay. In 2012, I was going through a period of transition. My now husband and I were getting married. We were, combining our households together and decided to move to the halfway point between us. I lived in Colorado Springs, and that's here in Colorado, and he lived in Denver. And so we decided to move to Castle Rock, which is kind of the halfway point between Denver and Colorado Springs. And it seemed like it was kind of a difficult transition. We were having a hard time finding a place to rent, and in the meantime, the townhouse I owned got rented very quickly. So, we're kind of in that transition point. At the same time, I was about to turn 50 years old. And I was having some chronic back pain that was really bothering me. And I was facing surgery. And there was kind of a lot going on. And so I decided, I don't know, there was a lot going on in our planet too at the time, and in our country. I was noticing, quite a bit of upheaval. 2012 was kind of a transition point, I think, overall for our planet, with the end of the Mayan age. And so there was a lot of controversy about that. Then there was also the elections that were going on in our country, which, changed the course of our country, there for a while. And so I was worrying quite a lot about, not just about myself, but about kind of what was going on, just in the world in general. So I guess one worried-filled night, I decided to send out a prayer to the universe. And it was a very heartfelt, earnest prayer. I was asking the ascended masters, angels, whoever would listen to me, Jesus, just anybody, to assist our planet, because it didn't look like things were going well for us. I would say especially economically and environmentally. So those are the things I was most concerned about. And just the way people were being treated in general, all the, the conflicts and wars. And so I sent this prayer out, and I also included, okay, I don't really believe in you guys, but if there's any space brothers and sisters out there that want to help us, please help us.
Oh, that's asking them straight, isn't it?
Yeah, God was really reaching. So I was just like, whoever wants to listen in,
you were covering your bases.
Please. Yeah, I was including everybody because I figured
flying spaghetti monster, anybody.
Yeah, so I had this prayer, and about 2 weeks passed after my sleepless night, and didn't hear anything, didn't receive any signs, and so I just figured, oh well, nobody heard me. They, as usual, I say prayers, they never get answered, so I just kind of, forgot about it. And then in June, this was in May, and a couple of weeks in June, after I had said the prayer, I had a minor kind of a laser surgery for my back, and I was recuperating, and I went to sleep one night, and I woke up, and I was definitely having some sort of out-of-body experience because it wasn't a dream. I was actually on board some sort of spacecraft or starcraft of some sort, spaceship, or it was unlike anything I've ever seen on TV or in some of the the popular sci-fi movies. It was it was beautiful, but yet very unmetallic. A lot of times, like in Star Wars or Star Wars or Star Trek, you'll see like these metallic looking spaceships, and this one was very non-metallic. It was made of light, and there were some other materials I couldn't identify what they were. It was technology beyond what I've seen here on Earth, and the ship itself seemed to be actually alive and like an actual sentient being in itself. It seemed extremely organic, which it kind of shifted and changed as I moved around. And then I was encountered by 4 or 5 extraterrestrial beings, and they didn't look like your, I guess, typical gray aliens. They were much more, I guess, refined looking, and they were beautiful in their own way, but they definitely didn't look humanoid at all. So I asked the beings, and I was surprised because I was able to communicate with them on board this craft using telepathy, which I didn't even know I was able to communicate telepathically, but I guess I was able to on this ship. And so I asked them, who are you and why am I here? I mean, the obvious, question, and they told me that they were Arcturians from Arcturus. They explained where Arcturus was located. They actually had a hologram where they illustrated some of these, their concepts and ideas. Then they told me that the reason why I was on board the ship was because, first of all, they were my family, and they meant that genetically as well as, I guess, metaphysically. And they told me that they heard my prayer, they were moved by it, and they wanted to have the opportunity to explain to me what was really going on Earth. So they proceeded to answer quite a few of my questions, and they did this primarily through telepathy and through using a hologram that was in a room that they call the orientation room. And the hologram was very realistic. I mean, it felt like I was actually, I guess, interacting with the hologram at certain points. But it was definitely a very strange experience. I mean, I had never experienced anything like that.
Did it feel like a wonder? Sorry, Debbie. Did it feel like a wonderful? Did it feel like a wonderful experience to you at the time?
Oh yes, I mean I wasn't afraid of at all, which really surprised me. Yeah, I felt the love and the acceptance from these beings. There was nothing really frightening about them. They didn't look like us. I mean, their energies were so intense and so bright that I had a hard time, I guess, really getting a good look at them. But what little I could see, they had larger heads than us. They were small beings, maybe about 4 or 5 feet.
Did you have that feeling of recognition with them?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they felt like they did feel like family to me. I mean, I felt very comfortable with them, which, like I said, it was, kind of surprising because they didn't look human at all. They had very large eyes. The eyes did have pupils and irises, which unlike what you would see with the gray aliens, but
were they, sorry about this.
No, you're fine.
Did they appear like solid beings, or did they appear kind of like they could drift in and out of the ether sort of thing?
They looked more energetic, meaning that looked like they had light bodies or crystalline bodies. They didn't have what I would call carbon-based bodies. So there wasn't any sense of solidity with them. It was almost, and I felt like that they were kind of lowering their vibration even to communicate with me. That so that I could at least get a sense of. Yeah,
it's just that as you're talking, I'm seeing all this in my head.
Yeah,
so I was just wanting to kind of verify what I was seeing.
By the way, she can do that.
Oh no, yes, yeah, you're definitely on target there. They were their energies were so bright, and they had auras that had colors I never even seen before. It was amazing.
Okay.
And carry on. Okay, so let me see where I was at. So they kept, I guess, emphasizing to me that everything we're going through right now on Earth is an illusion, and they said that like 5 times throughout our conversation. And the other thing they told me was they told me about my genetic history, the history of my family, how we're genetically connected with these beings. I guess they visited Earth quite a long time ago in the ancient times, and that's I was, I guess, descended from those beings that visited Earth. I think they were on some sort of scout ship of some sort at that time, and then. They kept telling me that I was being watched over or protected, and that my family was watched over and protected, meaning, I guess, my immediate family, and that they've been watching us for a long time. So that was really kind of strange, but it didn't feel creepy or scary. It just kind of felt like, oh, okay, I guess.
Well, that answers why. That answers the question that you put out. You can see that they obviously, because you're connected to them, they want to respond.
Oh, absolutely.
You're a family member.
Yeah, absolutely. So they answered my questions. They showed me a hologram imagery of what the Earth could be like, and it seemed like almost like a future Earth or a new Earth, but they showed how things could be like if we were, environmentally conscious, and they showed these beautiful homes that didn't even look like the houses like we have today. They were just more integrated into the environment, but then when you walked inside of them, it was like, oh, okay, you have rooms, but, they were so integrated into the environment that you didn't know where the environment ended and the home started. They were connected to free energy devices, and I saw what those look like. I also saw what the they used like pods, or I don't know, I guess I could call them greenhouses, but to grow their own food. And people were self-sustaining. They didn't need to rely on grocery stores or anything. People were able to teleport, so cars and other vehicles were no longer necessary. I think I did see maybe a couple of recreational vehicles, just people used for fun. But
I was going to say, I still need my motorcycle to go on long drives.
Yeah, I know. I kind of like that because airline tickets get expensive, So it's kind of nice to just be able to think, oh, I want to visit Costa Rica, and just boom, there you are, So it was pretty amazing. I mean,
this is the Earth of the future, yes.
Yeah, that's what they were, or the potential for Earth's future, I guess, because I asked them, is this going to be happening? And they said, well, it's up to you and everybody on Earth. And then I asked them, is this just for rich people? Because the homes were so beautiful that I thought for sure they would be very expensive. And they said, oh no, everybody gets to have homes like this. So they kind of laughed a little bit, because I think here on this planet we're kind of conditioned to believe that only wealthy people can have good things, So at least that's been my conditioning. So they kept emphasizing, oh no, this is for everybody. It's not, it's not monetarily based, So
there's no sort of class, different classes, and so everybody would be the same. There would be no upper class, middle class, lower class.
Well, that's all based on
exactly
wealth and power, and it seems to me that in this type of society, that no longer exists.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah, true. Money doesn't exist as such.
So there's no monarchy anymore. I'm sorry to say.
That's probably not a bad thing.
I had to get that dig in there.
There's no president either.
Well, yeah, you can.
Yeah, no president.
That would be a joy for a change.
Yeah, that would.
After the last 20 freaking years, yeah, that would be an absolute joy.
So what it actually means is that everybody is the same. There is no ruling parties. There is no classes. Everybody's the same, and we're all self-supporting.
That's what I saw in this hologram they were showing me, and I think they had like small councils of people that but everybody was equal in the council. It wasn't like there was a ruler and then everybody reported to the ruler. It was, and they had more community involvement. It is, yeah. I thought it was great. I was just like, gosh, I was crying because I was like, gosh, I hope this comes to pass, because it was it was so wonderful compared to especially what we're dealing with right now on this planet. So
one of the technologies that you mentioned was the fact that every home had its own self-sustaining power device. And
that's correct.
We had that opportunity. We had it almost 100 years ago with Tesla. And
exactly.
Tesla developed the technology, and who was it? Rockefeller, who shut him down because, God forbid, we should allow people to have free energy and nobody make money off of it, and he got shut down. And we could have been in this situation 80 years ago, and look where we are now. Still burning fossil fuels, still fighting over oil in the Middle East. It's ridiculous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it angers me too, Mark, because I just feel like, gosh, and it wasn't just Tesla, it was other inventors too. They shut down, or they would, destroy, their inventions, or block them in some sort of way, and it's been happening for a long time. And I believe for us to move forward, we're going to have to change. We're going to have to change the way we have to change the way we use energy. We have to change the way that we produce food. It's all encompassing, so the Arcturians were showing me all this, and they did crack. They had a sense of humor, which I thought was kind of cute. They were trying to make me laugh. So they weren't always real super serious. So I really appreciated that about them. They seemed to be kind and loving, and I felt very, very comfortable with them. Which was, I think, just amazing in itself. they did show me around the ship. They showed me different rooms. The one I remember the most was the what they called the sleeping room. And the only reason why I remember it was because when I walked in there with them, the room turned purple, and purple's like my favorite color in the world. So I just anything that's purple, I just kind of light up and get excited. But the room turned purple, and then they were showing like kind of animated sceneries of it looked like kind of Japanese landscape watercolors. And I was asking them, why is this room doing this? And they said, oh, it's just responding to what you like and find relaxing. And another really odd point that I noticed was in the orientation room. I asked them what the orientation room was for, and they said, well, this is where we bring Earth visitors to orient them. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And I noticed there was a fireplace in the orientation room. And I thought, okay, why is this really super futuristic room having a fireplace, But so I asked them about the fireplace, and they said, oh, we just have that there because Earth people really seem to like fireplaces. They find them very welcoming.
So to try and make you feel comfortable and at home then?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
So I thought that was really kind of cute and unique, kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that kind of makes sense, So after they took me around the ship a little bit, they kind of cut me loose. They said they had to do something, and they said, you're welcome to walk around on your own. I was a little sad because I grown to be fond of my, new family, my new family members. So
did they have? Sorry, Debbie. Did they have names?
I didn't pick up any names. I think they did, but it was more energetic than in a language that I think we would understand here on this earth.
So were you able to recognize someone by their energy?
I noticed each of them had slightly different auras. So I think you would be able to recognize them by their auras rather than by an actual given name. But actually, these beings look quite a bit alike. I mean, it was hard to tell unless you looked at their auras, they looked very similar to each other. I mean, you couldn't even tell who was male and who was female because they had kind of an androgynous look about them as well. So,
yeah, them aliens, they all look alike.
Yeah, they do.
Well, let me ask you this, Debbie. When you were on the craft experiencing all this, did you happen to take notice of yourself, your own body? Did anything feel strange, out of place? Do you feel, or I guess my question would be, do you feel you were there physically or perhaps more spiritually?
I felt like energetically I was there. I mean, my body felt the same. I mean, I didn't feel like, I don't know, I didn't feel lighter or, anything unusual, but I just kind of, when I look at when I would look down at my hands, they looked like my hands, or if I kind of looked like myself, but I don't think I was in physical form.
Could you tell what you were wearing?
I was wearing my pajamas.
Okay.
I wasn't naked. So I was wearing my pajamas. So it's just so here's this poor Earth person running around their pajamas on the ship. So.
Yeah, no, my luck. They'd take me up to be there, and I'd be wearing like an Independence Day T-shirt, showing aliens blowing up the White House. Gotcha. I'd be looking at like, sorry about this, guys.
Yeah, I know. I think I was wearing my pajamas because when I looked at myself, I looked like myself. When I was looking at just my body, but I there was no way I could have been there physically. I mean, it was just so high dimensional that everything that the other point I wanted to make was that on board the craft, everything was crystal clear. I mean, it was like details were very sharp. Colors were more intense. It was like hyper reality. So I I felt like, wow, this is like more real than real. I mean, this more real than the reality we know in third dimension. It was very, very real. That's how I knew it wasn't a dream, because, and I've had lucid dreams in the past, but even my lucid dreams wasn't anything like that. It was very, very real. I still remember all the details like it happened yesterday. I mean, it was crystal clear. I mean, just everything was, it's hard to describe unless you've gone through it yourself, but it's just like, wow, this is the way things are supposed to be, or, or
I've heard, I don't
know, it's just like things were easier. I don't know how to explain that. But
okay.
It was easy.
I've heard from other people who have had, and not necessarily in terms of ET encounters, but people who've astral traveled, or even the Lakota Sioux medicine man Black Elk, in his famous book by John Neidhart, Black Elk Speaks, when he talked about being young and having his visions. And even he described, and he was describing it to Neidhart back in, I believe, the 1930s, but his experiences were in about the 1860s or 70s. Going to this other world, having these visions, and saying it was so much more real than this reality. In fact, he said that's the real world and this is the dream world. Maybe, and that also kind of coincides with what these beings were telling you too, that this is all an illusion. Our reality.
And that's what they. Yeah, that was they said that, like, I think I counted like 5 times during our conversation. So they were really trying to emphasize to me that this is not our true reality. What we're in right now in third dimension. That we're spiritual beings just having kind of a third dimensional experience. So and that really brought it home for me. That wow, this is. So I kind of had the thought even afterwards, like, so I guess maybe when I'm dreaming, that's the real world, and when I'm awake here, in this reality, this is like a dream, or I don't know. It seems kind of interesting, but
I just had
you're absolutely right. Yeah,
I just had a thought hit me that you mentioned earlier that they actually. It was almost like where you met was a halfway point, because the ship that you were on, and you were seeing things on the ship, but now it makes me wonder if they even existed on that ship, because you entered another vibrational state in order to get to the ship. They had to step down their vibrational rate to meet you, so it's almost, I liken it almost like a way station, a halfway point, where the two sides can coincide and meet. And possibly...
Yes, you're absolutely right. They showed me the location of the ship. It was actually, the ship itself was located in our solar system between Mars and they called it the Arcturus Antares midway station. So, and it's located between Mars and Jupiter.
In the asteroid belt.
That's kind of where quite a few of the ET ships are kind of located, I think, just to keep an eye on our solar system. So so it is, you're absolutely right. It was a way station, or a halfway point. And I got the sense that their ship was made out of light. It was not, it wasn't even like it wasn't like a physical ship. It was more like it was huge. The ship was so big. It was like city sized. It was huge. Maybe even bigger than that. But it wasn't a physical ship that was built with materials, that we would, I guess, think of here on Earth. Well, so, yeah, absolutely.
If the ship doesn't exist in our physical dimension, then it's obviously existing in another dimension where there are other types of materials, or if that dimension is made up of energy, then that makes a lot of sense. Now, how long do you feel that you were on board this craft, or did time even matter at that point?
It seemed like time stood still, because it felt like I was there for a long time, but but then when I awoke, I was back in my bed. It was, morning the next day. It was just, kind of like, okay, I just kind of, it seemed, it seemed like I was there much longer than 7 or 8 hours, but it seemed like time stood still there, or time didn't really exist. Linear time didn't really exist there. So, because it seemed like I was doing quite a bit of different activities or things, or I found myself walking into a huge atrium that was in the middle of the ship, where all the beings would come and converge and meet, and there was like several different levels, and I was walking around there for quite a while, and just observing the different beings that were around me, and there was hundreds of them. I mean, this was a huge ship, so there was quite a few of different species of extraterrestrial beings on board the ship. The majority of them looked humanoid to me, with varying differences, maybe some different skin tones or colors. There were quite a few of them were quite a bit taller than what we would consider to be normal human heights, but they all seemed friendly. I mean, they didn't seem threatening, or they just were going about their business, and here was this poor little Earth person walking around in her pajamas, so I don't know if they took note of me. I think, but it seemed like I was there for a long time. So I think what you were saying maybe about time standing still, that would make more sense to me.
The different...
Sorry, Mark.
Go ahead.
Did you interact with any of the other species?
I did. I noticed on the atrium there was these light shafts that would take you from one end of the atrium to another, and I called them the light escalators because that was the closest thing I could think of that would relate to what these things were. But they weren't mechanical escalators at all. They were just beams of light mainly, and I noticed beings would get on these beams of light and just travel across this huge atrium to the other side of the atrium, and I was like, oh, I want to get on that thing. That looks pretty cool, So I kept stepping onto one of them, and I kept slipping off. It wouldn't let me on there, and I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong, And so about the third or fourth time after I tried it, I was caught by a being, and it looked like a Pleiadian. At least what the descriptions of Pleiadians would be like, and
you're going to have to.
He was very.
You're going to have to explain that because I don't know, from Pleiadians to Arcturians to Alpha Centaurians to, the ones down at the local Walmart.
I'll just describe what he looked like. He was very tall. He had curly light brown hair. His eyes looked a little larger than human eyes, but pretty much I would say he looked humanoid. There was a luminescence about him that you don't see with human men. It was his skin was kind of a golden color. He was glowing. His eyes kind of looked like a blue-green, because I remember looking right into his eyes, and very attractive, very tall. I just remember him being very tall, maybe 7-8 feet. So not extremely tall, but taller than your average human male. And he caught me, and the closest I could think of was, okay, he looked kind of Nordic. He might be Pleiadian. He didn't tell me what species he was, or what star race he was, but he just telepathically told me that, okay, you're doing it wrong. You need to think about. He says, you're trying to use your feet. You don't want to use your feet yet. Think about where you want to go first.
I was just going to say
then
that.
Step on it. Yeah, exactly. So it was using thought to direct yourself rather than physically directing yourself.
Yeah.
So when he showed me how to do it, then I said, okay, I'm going to try it your way. And I did. I thought about where I wanted to go, then stepped on the light shaft. And the next thing I knew, I was traveling on it. And I was pretty excited because I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then next thing I knew, I woke up and I was back in my bed, darn it. So I was so bummed out.
So this ship actually reads your thoughts. When you went into that room and the room went purple and one thing or another, it was picking up on your thoughts, what you like, or your maybe not thoughts, but your persona.
Or my needs.
It was more, and your needs, and it was morphing into what would make you feel comfortable.
Absolutely. That was the amazing thing, the most amazing thing, other than, interacting with these beings, which was pretty amazing in itself. But the ship itself was so amazing. It was unlike anything I've seen in sci-fi movies or shows. It was very organic and very responsive to its inhabitants, which I thought was pretty cool.
See, knowing me, I'd go into that one room and it would be a big old Texas barbecue place. It's like, yep, that'll work for me. with a tiki bar in the middle.
Or for some people, it might be a saloon or a bar or something. I don't know.
The simple pleasures of life.
So we all have our own little unique. I happen to like Asian landscape paintings, so I guess that's what it showed up for me.
Now, so when you woke up in bed after traveling up the up escalator, and then that's the last thing you remembered, and boom, you wake up in bed. How did you feel right away? And I guess not just emotionally, but how did your body feel?
I felt energized. I actually, usually when I wake up in the morning, I feel really tired. I'm not like a morning person, so I'm kind of a slow riser, but I felt energized, which really surprised me, and I felt really good. I mean, I felt.
Did you feel like all the weights and worries of the world had been lifted off your shoulders?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And I felt like. I felt perplexed at the same time, like what the heck just happened? And but physically, I felt really good. I felt probably better than I had in years. I mean, just like I was ready to bounce out of bed. I didn't feel the aches and pains I normally feel. I didn't feel draggy or tired like I usually do in the mornings. I just felt like, wow, I just feel really, really good and really energetic. And I emotionally, however, I felt perplexed. I knew something extraordinary happened, but I was having a hard time processing what just happened. It was just like overwhelming.
Did it feel like it had really happened, or did your mind start trying to convince you it was all a dream?
No, it felt like it really happened. I knew it wasn't a dream. There was no way it was a dream. I knew it was something very real that just happened to me. So when the first person I told about what just happened to me was my husband, and of course he didn't believe me. So he thought I was just having a crazy dream. And I said, "Oh no, it wasn't a dream. It was beyond real. I mean, it was more real than real, And after a while, he did believe me, but it took some convincing on my part. But I didn't really tell many people about my experience for a long time. I would say for about 4 or 5 years. I guess when did I spoke about it publicly for the first time in December of last year. So it took a while, I think, just for me to process what happened to me and try to understand, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it because I thought people would laugh at me or make me out to be crazy or something like that. So,
well, that's what the ignorant usually do to things that they're afraid of or don't understand. When you had this experience, did you? How can I say this? You basically went through a very emotional and spiritual high. Did you crash afterwards, having to come back and work in the mundane human world?
Yeah, I did. I went through periods of depression, and it was I just didn't understand why I would have an experience like that and then be forced back to to live in 3D reality. And so I think it's similar to what maybe a near-death experiencer would go through, after they've died and passed on and then got sent back, to life after they've had their near-death experience. So I would say in that sense, what I went through was very similar to that. I remember as I was driving to work every morning, I was crying. I missed the beings. I missed the beautiful place. I missed the ship. I was just crying every morning to work for several months because, I didn't want to be in this reality anymore. It was just I didn't feel that connected to it.
Yeah, it was like being homesick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I felt very homesick. Yeah, because that to me felt more like home than, being here on Earth.
So after all this happened and you going through months of withdrawal, basically, did you get any sense that there was... trying to think of the best way to process this. Because when you have this kind of experience and now you've crashed, now you're trying to get on with your life, did you feel any renewed sense of purpose, or did other experiences start to happen that helped to reinforce this experience?
I would say yes and yes. I felt like there was obviously a really big reason why that happened, and it was almost like I was being activated in some sense, but I also had other kind of interdimensional experiences, weird things that I was starting to see UFOs all the time. I never saw UFOs before this experience. I mean, I couldn't even just, and then I was seeing them all the time. I was telepathically communicating with, a couple of these UFO experiences I've had. I've had experiences where I was, I guess, found myself in different dimensions, but, didn't know how I got there. And then I would phase out of it and be back to 3D. And then I also noticed that my extrasensory perception seemed to increase quite a lot. I mean, like almost like 100-fold to where it was before. I was just one of those people in the past that I just felt like I barely survived. I didn't really was that in tune with my environment or things that were going on around me. But after this experience, I was picking up on people's thoughts. I was starting to look at people. I could tell what their star lineage was. And I was like, where is this coming from? I sure didn't learn this in school, at least not on Earth school. But just, things were just, people, I would think about somebody and then they would call me like, 5 minutes later and, or a minute later. I mean, it was, kind of that kind of extrasensory psychic perception that seemed to really increase. And so I don't know, I guess at first I wasn't sure what was happening with me. I just knew something different. There was something different about me, but I had a hard time even describing what was going on with myself. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
it does. And I do want to ask you something, because you said something earlier in the interview, and so I'm trying to get in. I have some thoughts on it, but I want to hear from you first. Now, the night that you did this crying out to the universe, and you're asking anybody and everybody for help, and now you also mentioned you came from a Catholic background. So do you find that over the years, because this is what I'm hearing is your thoughts and beliefs have maybe changed over the years, that kind of brings you to this point where you're not sticking with strict religious dogma, you're open to other types of energies that are out there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been curious about, I guess, other religions or other, I guess, spiritual, thoughts, and for quite a number of years. So I was brought up Catholic, but I wasn't a strict practicing Catholic. I just for, I guess, the sake of, I guess saying that I had a religion, I would say, yes, I'm Catholic, but I wasn't a practicing Catholic for quite a few years. And I think just my relationship with my husband, opened, just, some of the interest he had, I think got me thinking about, I guess, other things, and that, maybe, we're not alone in the universe. And so I think you're right. I think things, my thoughts and my beliefs did shift and change throughout the years, maybe very subtly, but, maybe in the past I would have just prayed to Jesus, for instance, or maybe one of the, saints. But, during that particular prayer, I was sending it out to any higher dimensional being I can think of, because I just felt like, maybe Jesus wasn't the only one. There was other beings that could help us. So
it seems.
So I felt like it was definitely a shift and change in my beliefs. Yes.
I'll apologize to our listeners. We seem to be stepping on each other a little bit, but it is a Skype delay. Gotta love Skype. So not purposely intending to step on each other. It seems to me that you or these beings decided to show themselves. You put out this call out there, but you know what? I doubt it would have happened 10 years earlier. You kind of needed to be in a certain place in your life, not only with your own spiritual and emotional development, but in your own belief systems, I believe, for these beings to actually move forward and initiate contact with you like this. Almost like you were being prepared for all your life coming up to that point. You were being slowly prepared for that meeting, because even a few years before, you probably wouldn't have been prepared for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it was very timely. It seemed interesting that the contact happened a month before my 50th birthday. It seemed like maybe it was predestined, that at a certain point in my life I was supposed to have contact. But yes, I would agree. If for about 6 years before I had contact, I did have a period where I was in service to our community through doing animal-assisted therapy work with my therapy cat. And she is a registered therapy cat. And so before that, I was very, I think, self-centric person. But I think just going through the experience of serving my community through doing, this volunteer work that I was doing for 6 years, transformed me. Even that transformed me, because I started getting a sense of, wow, it's not just all about me. It's not just, living day to day and surviving. It's about, being of service to others. And my cat and I did some incredible work during the 6 years that we were doing, actively doing animal-assisted therapy. So I felt like I had to have even that experience before having the contact with the extraterrestrials. I don't know if that makes sense, but, it just seemed like I was slowly being prepared. Yeah.
Irene, do you have any questions?
No, you carry on.
Okay. Just making sure.
I'm just trying to sort this puppy out.
Oh, okay. Gertie's causing more trouble, huh? Yeah. You should use Gertie as a therapy animal. You can take her over to people's house and chew on their furniture.
Oh, this is it. She's at the moment trying to chew up an armchair, so... Okay, I'm sorry about this, Debbie.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine.
Gertie is Paranormal UK Radio's pet
mascot.
Yeah, so she's the mascot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Debbie, with the experience that whole intense experience that you had on this other ship, somewhere in the asteroid belt with these Arcturians, now that happened going on almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Have you had any other experiences that could match that since then? Or has it been mostly, like you said, now you see the UFOs, you've had some heightened sensory perception, you have some communication, but nothing on par with what that first experience? Or has other things happened?
I did have a second visit on board the ship in December of 2012. I was back on board. Once again, I fell asleep at night, and I was back on board that same ship because I recognized the orientation room. But instead of the Arcturians, I was there with I would call them the Pleiadian-like individual that was helping me on the light shaft. It was him instead of the Arcturians. And it seemed like he was having a hard time. The Arcturians seemed to be able to keep me there longer. When this individual met with me, he had a harder time. He kept saying, I don't know how long this transmission is going to last because I'm having a hard time holding the lower frequencies for you to be here. So I don't know if the Arcturians had an easier time of it, or maybe it was just, I don't know, the energies at that time. But it was a more personal visit that time. This man, I guess, told me that he had several messages for me and that I needed to pay attention. So I said, okay, I'm paying attention. Go ahead and tell me. And they were mostly messages concerning there was one concerning a friend who was trying to contact the Pleiadians. And I didn't know this until I met with her for lunch the next day. And she said, oh, yes, I've been trying to contact the Pleiadians for months. And I said, well, they know you've been trying to contact them, so because I have a message for you. And one was, and then there was a message about my father who had committed suicide in 2007, and I guess being brought up Roman Catholic, there's always that belief that if somebody commits suicide, they go straight to hell. And this man told me that wasn't true. That my dad was going through a debriefing of some sort because he broke his soul contract, but that he wasn't in hell and that he was actually doing quite well as a spirit. So it brought me a lot of peace and, I guess, comfort to hear that, because when I had this second visit, it was right a few days before Christmas, and I was really missing my dad a lot. So and it appeared that they knew who he was, that, he was doing some sort of spiritual work on a higher spiritual level, and it just brought a lot of peace. And then it seemed like I could see things kind of fading out. And then I woke up and I was back in my bed again. So it wasn't quite as long of a visit as the first one. I've had other experiences where I've had out-of-body experiences where I found myself in either other star systems or kind of more of a remote viewing kind of way. But I think I was actually physically there a couple of times in these other places. And then I did have another visit on board, a different starcraft. It was another Dreamtime thing, but not quite as intense as the first visit I had in June 2012.
Now you just mentioned that you, in I guess whether it was astral traveling or remote viewing, it wasn't just that you wound up on another ship. You wound up on another planet?
Yeah, there was, I think, one experience I had where I was out on a planet called Tau Ceti, and never heard of it, never knew about it, but I was just viewing what was going on. It looked like I was in some sort of a meeting room or something. There was a bunch of individuals. They looked more humanoid. They looked, pretty similar to humans. And they were having conversations. Just they were laughing and talking about different things, but they were making jokes about draconians, which I thought was kind of interesting. But they knew right away I was there. I mean, because they were aware of my presence, and they even asked me, who are you? And I told them who I was, and I told them the reason why I was there. I was just curious, wanting to see what their planet was about. And I guess they sensed I was okay, so they allowed me to stay a little while longer. But they made a comment about me being an Arcturian in a human body, which I thought was interesting. So so I don't know if I have just a very Arcturian soul and I'm just kind of walking around in a human body. I don't know, but it was interesting that they recognized that. And there was some other beings there that looked kind of hairy and bear-like. I don't know. It was, but there was the humanoid beings and then these bear-like beings, but they looked like bear with humanoid bodies. I don't know. It was interesting.
Like a Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
Yeah, kind of like a Sasquatch. Yeah, just kind of hairy. Yeah, It was. But they were interacting with the humanoids like they all knew each other. So it was like, okay.
It wasn't like they were crashing the party or anything.
No, not at all. No,
Okay.
I think they were meant to be there. So,
it
was very interesting. It didn't last very long, but the short time I was there, I felt like, wow, okay, I just had an exposure to a different civilization and a different ET group than I had previously. So
when you went to this other planet, did you only just show up in this room and just know you were on another planet, or did you get to see anything on the outside?
I was just in the room. I didn't see anything else, but I just knew it wasn't anything on Earth.
Okay.
So,
now, when you had the other experience with the Pleiadian, you used a word that I found very interesting. You said he didn't know how long he can hold this transmission.
Mm-hmm.
Not hold you in another reality, but a transmission.
Mm-hmm. Well, he said he didn't know how long he could hold the frequency. So I think he was holding me there,
Okay.
on an etheric level. Yeah.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. So that's probably was a poor choice of words. He actually said frequency. So I felt like he was actually kind of bringing me back there on an etheric level, but couldn't hold the lower frequency just for me to be there, because I'm obviously not, fourth or fifth dimension or sixth dimension or wherever they were at. So that was really interesting. And it felt like things were fading in and out. It wasn't quite as clear as when the Arcturians brought me up. So.
Okay. When you've had these experiences now over the last 5 years, can you look back at your life and maybe see if there were other times within your lifetime in hindsight that you can think maybe some strange things went on, or something that would give you a hint that maybe you had some kind of ongoing relationship, that it wasn't until you just turned 50 that all of a sudden, boom, they come into your life?
Oh, no, I think it was definitely ongoing. I've had strange experiences where, I either should have died or something horrible was about to happen, and then I get some being showing up. I called them angels back in that time because I didn't know what they were. I mean, they seemed like angels, but they would show up, and it would change the experience to where the bad thing wouldn't happen. So there's been like a number of experiences. I always felt like I was maybe being watched. I don't know that. And there wasn't anything I could really pinpoint, anything specifically, but just that. And I even remember as a child, I felt, I don't know how I knew this as a child, but I just felt like I didn't really come from here. I didn't belong here. And that, I felt for a while like my own immediate family was not really my family, and that I was, somehow maybe adopted or something. But obviously I looked like them, so, that wasn't the case. But it just seemed like, for whatever reason, I always knew I came for a specific mission, but it was kind of like a vague feeling, but not really. I think, it was kind of like in the back of my head, like, oh, I'm here for a mission. I'm supposed to complete my mission, but I didn't really even know what that was. So So yeah, there was a number of experiences I think throughout my life that were very bizarre or strange, and
Debbie,
I just
Debbie,
sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Were you one of these psychic children? You know,
I don't know if I was or not. I remember there was times in my life where I've had dreams that were kind of prophetic dreams, and they came true. So maybe I was. I just maybe didn't really recognize myself as being anything different or special. But I think maybe there was maybe something that was going on even when I was younger. But
yeah.
And in a way, I don't know if this is just because of an aspect of being human, but a lot of what you just described, you know, I apply to myself all the time. I mean, I sometimes don't feel like I belong here. I don't feel like really truly at home anywhere, and I've lived on both coasts, and now I'm in the middle of the country. And when I was younger, I used to think my twin brother and I were adopted anyway because we just seemed to be so different from the rest of the family. And, you know, that could either, you know, it's a psychological defense mechanism. It's something that, you know, you believe when you're maybe insecure. I know I was insecure. Or, you know, maybe I'm still waiting for the aliens to come down and say hi to me. I don't know.
I hear you.
It's a strange situation.
It is.
I sometimes think he's not from this planet. I really do.
Yeah, and I know you're not. So,
that's another story.
Yes, it is. Now you made me forget where I was going to go with this.
Good.
Oh, poop. Anyway, with the other experiences, now you pleaded to the universe, and they came and they talked with you. They said that what we're dealing with is an illusion. Now we're jumping forward 5 years, another election cycle, and everything out there right now, the whole world seems like it's completely becoming unhinged.
Absolutely.
It looks like we're on the eve of war on two fronts. Our politicians are absolutely crazy. The people, half of our citizens are absolutely crazy. Everyone is going nuts. So if this is all an illusion, okay, did you get any sense on how it was an illusion? Or is it the fact that we're here living a mortal life during this time frame, but it's only temporary, so what happens here really doesn't matter in the grand scheme? I mean, what are your thoughts?
I'm still processing that what they meant by illusion. So I don't know if I really have a good answer, but I got the sense from them that this is just part of a game or an experience that we've chosen to have, and that the choices we make may determine the outcome. And because they kept telling me, "Oh, it's your choice. It's your choice," and I kept thinking, okay, how am I going to change things? I'm just one individual, But it seemed like it was, and it seemed weird that, okay, I'm having this illusionary experience, but I'm doing it with all these other beings that are also having the same illusionary experience. So how does this work? It just seemed kind of mind-boggling. But I guess I have to say that I think it's just we're here to assist during an evolutionary time in Earth's history, and I think there's certain I guess, for lack of a better term, there's star-seeded individuals that have chosen to come here to assist with this process. And that because, we're shifting to higher dimensions, even right now, my understanding is that we're moving into the fourth dimension if we're not already in fourth dimension. But that I think things are becoming unhinged because it's almost like you have to stir the pot, and all the mud and the crud comes up to the surface before things get cleared out. So
that's what I was going to say. You have to go through the bad times before the good times happen. Yeah.
So that's kind of the feeling I'm getting about all this, and that there's certain individuals like myself and Irene and Mark, that all of us that are here to kind of be the way showers, just, to remind everybody around us that, okay, not, okay, this is, yeah, there's weird things that are going on, but there's explanations for these weird things, and that we're not just all going crazy. And, we're just going through I think some really harsh growing pains right now, but that there's another side to this, that, we're going to move to hopefully something that's better. But yeah, right now I agree. I can't even watch the news anymore, because I'm just like, I'm an empathic person anyway, and I'm very sensitive. So a lot of what's on the news really bothers me, but it's also that it just seems like it's unreal. I don't know. I think there's some propaganda, and, not to get into conspiracy theories too much, but, there's some propaganda with the media, and maybe we're being led to believe things are worse than what they are. I mean, I do think that we're on the precipice of a big change, and that things are going to be changing here very dramatically within the next 15 to 20 years. If not, maybe it might even take longer than that, but it's but we're all playing a part in it. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I'm still processing the whole illusion thing too, because to me it seems pretty darn real to be an illusion.
Yeah, well, while we're here, it's real to us, maybe not to them. And the other thing that you've been touching on, that a lot of people in the UFO community, or people who believe in ETs, but yet most people still think of them as, oh, they're just aliens from another planet here visiting us, and in their nuts and bolts ships, and some of them abduct people, and all the sci-fi trappings that come with from a typical MUFON meeting, in my opinion, where this phenomenon is much, much stranger and higher level than what the media or even a lot of the researchers will have us believe. In fact, the fact that they knew about your father and where he was at this point in his journey, even though he's left this plane, that's something that I learned several years back. I had to start to accept, because I had heard hints of it before from Whitley Strieber's writings and others, that they're very much involved in the spiritual process. Not just
absolutely, yeah.
Not just coming down here, and I do believe that as a species we were grown and manipulated. Okay, I think we were created. Yeah. Whoever they are, one or more of these entities created the human race and have tinkered with it over time. But they're also very much involved on a spiritual level. And by spiritual, people need to understand that there are so many different levels of reality. String theory mentions there's 11. I think that there's a whole bunch more than that. That where we operate on and where we really come from. And that's the whole idea. They say that we come down here for a certain period of time. We have a human experience, and then we return back to one of those levels where we're really from.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Even Whitley Strieber has mentioned in a couple of his experiences about seeing people during his experiences and later finding out that they were dead at the time, and interacting with the dead. A lot of people who have spiritual experiences, like where a loved one passes and comes and visits them, there's a lot of correlations with that, along with the ET experience, that are very, very similar. So
I would agree that a lot of these transformational experiences are extremely similar, because they're coming from a higher dimensional plane, and we're dealing with I think much, much higher frequencies, and that there are these interdimensional beings that are beyond even our own human understanding, that they operate on a much I think higher level. So absolutely, and I think once we as third dimensional humans, we get exposed to these higher dimensions, it transforms us. It cannot not transform us. You know what I'm saying? So it's we become more in tune with the different reality, and then we end up going those of us who've had, I guess, ET experiences or, near death or out of body experiences or astral travels, it just ends up transforming you on a very profound level. Just can't, you're no longer the same person that you were, before it happened.
Well, Dr. John Mack, in his work, and I'm sure you're familiar with Dr. John Mack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who was a hypnotherapist out of Harvard. I'm not sure. I want to say Cambridge, but that's the UK. Who was very instrumental with regressing people who've had the ET abduction experiences. And in many of those cases, and he documented in his books Abduction and Passport to the Cosmos, he documented where people, when he regressing them back before this lifetime, where they were these beings from these other planets who agreed to come in and have a human experience this time. Now, the fact that these people that you met, these Arcturans, who claim you're one of them and working with them, do you think that that's possibly the case, where maybe your soul was part of them and you chose to come in for a human lifetime?
Yes, I would say absolutely. When I was on board the ship, they told me of my lineage, and they said, "Oh, you come from a long line of Arcturian scientists, historians, and ambassadors," and that they made that comment, and so I knew they were talking about me on a soul level, but also maybe even on a genetic level, because they did show me an imagery where there was a scout ship that was visiting Earth from, I think the Arcturians didn't really get that involved with the Human Genome Project, as you described earlier, but they did have their own little, I guess, projects and experiments going on, with their planet Earth. They were a little more, I think, subtle about it than maybe the Sirians and the Pleiadians, but they did send a scout ship, and it crash landed in, I think, central Italy, which is actually where my father's family is from. And they were showing me how, they were the ones that actually started the Etruscan civilization, that it was an experiment they did to see if they can create a higher spiritual level civilization, in ancient times, which, was actually successful for a while, but then all the Etruscans disappeared, so I think they disappeared. I don't think they were killed off or anything like that. I believe, like the Mayans, they were probably, interdimensionally traveled to a different dimension. And so they were done with their experiment. That was it. And they were done, so, but evidently, my physical lineage comes from that region of Italy that is, I guess, where the Etruscan Empire was very prevalent. So, I know on a physical level, I was descended from the Etruscans, and as a matter of fact, my family, we still have Etruscan pottery that's been passed down from generation to generation that we still have. And so I know there was a connection there. So I don't know if from my understanding was that, the scientists that visited Earth at that time, I think, chose to stay or decided to stay on Earth and, I guess, interact with the Earth beings, maybe took on wives and husbands. I don't know. But so it seemed to me like there was also kind of a physical component to it as well. But for definitely on the soul level, I would say yes. I'm definitely most likely, from what I've seen in the Akashic records and my understanding of what they showed me, that I am one of them. I obviously when we incarnate onto Earth in third dimension, because we go through this, just going from higher dimensions to such a low dimension, we go through what's called a veil of forgetfulness, and we forget who we are. So you go into this experience, you forget your past lives and your past experiences, but then through, I guess, serendipity or grace or maybe a soul contract, you start remembering things again. So I'm just now starting to remember things about my, I guess, soul's past that has been very enlightening and I guess very, I don't know, it's been very, very interesting. I feel honored to be here, actually, even though it's hard. This is a hard assignment here on Earth, but I feel honored to be here to assist in any way I can.
Well, when you mention your family from Central Italy, where about in Central Italy? Because I know Irene's going to be asking that question.
Okay.
How did you know that?
Because I know your love of that area of Italy.
Of Italy,
My father's family is from a little town called Ferrara, which is in kind of Emilia-Romagna area. It's really close to Bologna. So. Yeah. And it's very close to Lucca. Lucca was a seat of, I think, the Etruscan civilization. And I actually visited the Etruscan ruins there when I was, visiting that region with my parents. So yeah, it's just that area there. Very close to the River Po. My last name has Po in it, so my real last name. But it's... So there's this connection there with the Etruscans that's really interesting.
Yeah, because
it's interesting.
Yeah,
but I'm mainly down the south.
It's farther south than that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a facet with the Amalfitani coast and Pontoni, Ravello, all that area.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's more of that was more of a Greek influenced area, from what I understand. Yeah. Yeah, very, so I can get into some galactic history about that, but I'll save that for another discussion. But, there was actually quite a few extraterrestrials that influenced Earth, or that region of, I guess, not Earth, but the region of Europe.
There you go, Mark. That's why, more than likely, I'm so attracted to the place.
It could be. It could be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Debbie also mentioned something, and the anti-snob in me is coming out. Actually, the low-life in me is coming out because, they talk about, you're coming from this distinguished lineage of ambassadors and scientists. Well, where are the ditch diggers? Okay, we're like the beer crafters, or the guy who cleans the local toilet. I mean, they're also from that advanced civilization. Don't they get a say in anything? Actually, yeah, Irene's right. That's probably where I come from.
No.
I'm from the Arcturian Ditch Digger Central.
I want to ask you a question, Debbie. I'm going to get... This is a word that I'm not very good at saying, because there's certain words I cannot say. As Mark will tell you, I get so tongue-tied on them. How do you access the Akashic records? Don't go when I say it.
Yeah, Akashic. It's actually, you'll get used to it as you say it more often. I
haven't been able to get used to it in all the years I've lived on this earth.
Okay.
There are certain words, literally certain words, and certain words that... they act like trigger words to me, don't they, Mark? And
it just throws her right into gobbledygook speak.
Yeah.
and what's
Should
strange?
I answer Mark's question first, and then Irene's?
Mine was more of a joke. So go ahead and answer Irene's.
Okay. The only thing I just wanted to say in relation to what Mark was saying is that these extraterrestrial beings, they've moved beyond having, I guess, ditch diggers. They have such, I guess, high-level technology that, technology does all these menial, I guess, tasks, and, the citizens of their civilization, get to spend their lives doing, I guess, higher-level work. So... At least that's my understanding of it, because I didn't see any ditch diggers on the ship. I don't know. There might have been. I think there was probably technicians, but I think they're just so advanced that they move beyond having to have, I guess, menial jobs like we have here on Earth. At least that's my understanding of it. To answer Irene's question,
before you answer my question, do you know what I've been getting all the way through this? Is that you are someone important off of this from this species, like a scientist or something that has been told to come to this Earth told to come to this earth for a particular reason. Okay, and also that to come to this earth, you have to be born into an earthly body, like a baby and things like that. And they are your source, our source. That's where we go back.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I believe that.
But for some reason, you are a lot older. Your soul, or whatever, your part of that being is a lot older than this body that you're in now. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like oh, Mark. It's like you've traveled through the dimensions, and
yes,
had to be reborn into this body. That's all. Yeah. But then you are still the same person. You are still that being that is. Forget it, Irene.
Hello?
Lost it.
Okay.
She's trying to get it out there.
Yeah. Skype glitches there. So your question is, you're just, or your comment is that I'm actually a much older soul than my body. Yeah,
we call it soul. We call it soul because you've got to have a word for it. So soul,
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
used, but it's not actually soul as most people think.
Right. I think it's definitely. I don't know if I guess in the olden days they'd call it spirit, but
no, it wouldn't even be called that. It's shit. Sorry, everybody. I didn't mean to use that word.
Yeah.
I know
what you mean. Though.
I know it all, but I can't find the words. The words just don't exist to explain it.
No, I don't think they do in our language. No, I would agree with that. No, I do. Just going into my own Akashic records, I've had, I guess, more lifetimes off planet than lifetimes on this planet. As a matter of fact, I've had very few lives on this planet. I would say maybe 4 or 5 at the most. This is maybe my fifth life as a human. So yeah, it seems like I was, I chose or either was directed to come here for a specific reason. So yes, I would say that's true. To answer your question about the Akashic records, my understanding from the Arcturians, because my ancestors or whoever my ancestors were, my Arcturian ancestors were historians, and they're my understanding also is that the Arcturians are the keepers of the Akashic records. At least that's what they told me. And so my ancestors have had connections to the Akashic records, so I have kind of an ancestral connection to them. So after I had my visit on board the ships, the 2 visits, I found that I was accessing the records without even knowing what I was doing. I would meet people and I would know immediately.
It's like ESP. You can actually download or whatever you need from those records. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was
reaching up into some sort of
I was doing it a lot, and I would meet people and I would be like, oh, they had a past life as a Pleiadian, or oh yeah, they're actually originated from Sirius, or no, they or yeah,
I'd like to know where I'm from.
Yeah,
definitely like to know where. Have you got any idea, Debbie?
What's that?
Got any idea where I'm from?
I'm going to check in on that here in a moment.
Because
Well, she's doing that. I was going to say, when you get the, if you're instructed or you're ordered to come here, the recruiter in me, since I'm a recruiter in my day job, starts going, you mean I got to go to Earth? Okay, let's talk about my compensation package. What kind of what kind of bonus am I going to get for having to come down to Earth again? Because
I'm laughing because I think that all the time. I said, "Damn, I better get some good bennies for
exactly
this gig because this is really hard."
It's like, oh man, I got to go back there. No, come on, let's talk about my bonus here, bonus structure here.
I know. I think that all the time. Because it's probably very a very earthly way of thinking of things, but still, I think there must have been some real big benefit from me.
And when I'm done, I want a relocation package. All right.
Yeah, I do. A very a very generous one at that. So.
I'm serious. I really do feel that she was told she had to come here. You know, it wasn't a choice. She was told to come here for a reason.
See, I think
there is something that she has to do.
Well, you know,
sorry about the word "she," Debbie.
Yeah.
You know,
no, that's okay. I don't mind.
And let me say this, and then we'll let Debbie chime in. But you know, I feel that there always is a choice. There is always a free will. You could be ordered to go, but if you absolutely didn't want to, you'd say no. But again, I think when we're given those cases, we do.
It's like the person in charge says, "Okay, now you've got to go down to that planet, and you've got to do this. You've got to do that." You know. And I feel that there is some sort of science behind it, that she's...
Debbie?
Yes, Debbie, I'm talking as if you're not here. I am so sorry. My father
you're
would
fine.
click me around the ear for that one.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
All through this interview, I've been picking stuff up and getting stuff that... has been throwing me right through the interview. It's, I don't know why. Forget it.
Okay, and as far as your star lineage, I'm picking up Vega and Sirius for you.
Vega and Sirius?
Yeah. Vega was the origination point, but you spent quite a few lives on Sirius. So.
Is that why you're so serious? Yeah.
You're going to get one in a minute.
Yeah. See what I mean? See what I got to put up with?
Oh.
Well, let that resonate inside your noggin for a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. This person, this crazy person from the UK is going to sit down and take that in at the moment. And that may be, yeah. Forget
it.
Yeah,
Vega was one of the origination points for the humanoid races. So I could get into a lot of history about that, but I won't. So
where is Vega?
It's actually it's the major star in the Lyra constellation. So Lyra.
I'll pull up a star map. I have the Stellarium, and we'll pull it up when we're after the show, and I'll show you where it's located. Between Vega and Sirius, I'm not sure how close. I'm crappy with stellar topography. When you started accessing these Akashic records, did you have this ability before your first experience, or is this something you discovered afterwards?
Something I discovered afterwards. I didn't even know what the Akashic records were before my experience. So, and I still, even afterwards, I didn't know there was a term for it. I just knew I was accessing some information, or there was information that was downloaded that I didn't really have kind of a name for it until, I guess I did, just happened to meet certain people that explained it to me, but no, I didn't have any abilities whatsoever. I didn't even know what they were. I mean, let alone I had any connection to them. So yeah, it was just a new, and I just started doing Akashic readings, I think, on a semi-professional, then a professional level, just in the last 2 years. So it's, something that I definitely had to, evolve into.
Well, considering that you've had your first experiences almost less than 5 years ago, yeah, this is still all relatively new to you compared to your entire
absolutely.
lifetime.
Absolutely. Yeah, I went through like a deep, I was like a non-spiritual person or a mildly, curious person, but I went from a mildly curious person to having a crash course in spiritual concepts and spirituality, like in a number of, a handful of years, so... I just kind of had to, I guess, catch up quickly. And I felt like I was getting constant downloads in my dream time, even in my waking hours. And I was remembering things, and, I would suddenly know things that there was no way I would have known before I had my experience. It was just crazy. It was just like, I call it a crash course, but that's the closest I can use, closest terminology I can use to describe what I was going through. It was just, crazy. I felt like I definitely changed, like something like I was just evolving rapidly and evolving. So, so yeah, it was definitely a different experience.
Do you feel that a majority of the human souls, or for lack of a better term, normal schmucks like me, our souls, do we all originate from other star systems, other realities, or is there, like, say, a majority of the human souls, human populations strictly from here, and we're primarily having human experiences? In other words, is it more rare to come in having that star lineage than it is for us other humans?
That's a really good question. My understanding, just from my, doing Akashic readings, that I think, in this period of time on our planet right now, we have more starseeds here than we've ever had in human history before. Now, there is, I would say the majority of people here on this planet that, are just everyday people, probably are Earth souls. They're probably souls that are connected to Earth and have had, Earth incarnations, but we do have more starseeds and I would say incarnated angelics and other, I guess, extra, higher dimensional beings incarnating onto Earth at this time than we've ever had in history before. So I would say yes and yes. I don't know if that makes sense, but okay. So at least in my readings, when I do Akashic readings, I would say the majority of people that would even be interested in an Akashic reading probably are starseed or have, higher human soul lineage, where they're, maybe a very evolved human, or they're angelic, or, they have some sort of higher dimensional lineage of some sort. I wouldn't say 100% of them are like that, but the majority of them are. And I think it's just because we have so many on the planet. My understanding also, and this, I think some of this was based off, Dolores Cannon talks about this as well, but how because of World War II and what happened with Hiroshima, and that, the other star races that are in the galaxy decided, we can't have Earth blow itself up, because that would just impact, the entire universe. And so they had to do something to intervene. And so they, after, I guess, 1947 was when they, you have the mass incarnation occurring of starseeds and other dimensional beings on this planet. So,
which happened to coincide with the baby boom,
probably,
too.
Quite a few of us that were born around that time and afterwards are likely starseeds. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I do believe that there's probably more of us here than there's ever been. So.
Well, I mean, I stepped over you there, stupid Skype, but I was going to say, that's interesting because that coincides with the baby boom after World War II and the massive population explosion that we've been experiencing for the last 60 years.
Absolutely.
Now,
that was no accident either, so just letting you know that.
But at the same time,
we had to get the star babies here somehow, so they had to be a baby boom.
But at the time, though, they were worried about us nuclear war, annihilating ourselves. Yet, isn't that exactly where we are right here at this moment today? That the threat of nuclear war or conflict that could lead to nuclear war is at its highest since the 1960s.
Oh, I know, and that's the thing that I think perplexes me as well, is that, so are we really making a difference as, I guess, incarnated starseeds, has things really changed? I like to think they have, but, if you see kind of the physical evidence around you, it seems like we still have a long way to go. It's just not, I don't know. It just seems like we're not really have evolved as far as we should have yet. So yeah, that is a great question. I wonder that myself. I get very frustrated thinking about it, actually. So, And sometimes I feel like, what am I, even if I was a chosen Arcturian, chosen to incarnate into a human body for whatever, part of this mission that I was supposed to play out, am I really making a big impact here? Because, or any of us really, because, it seems like so far things haven't changed that much, but maybe they have and we just don't realize it. I don't know. That's a good question, though.
Well, if you look at it, part of this radio show, I mean, you've only been out doing this publicly for a couple of years. And now with part of the radio show, it's getting out there and telling your story to a much larger audience and affecting people. And that's one of the reasons why we really enjoy doing this show is not only do we, as the hosts, learn so much from our guests, but it also gives that platform for people that are trying to help to get their ideas out there to that wider audience. So,
absolutely.
Hopefully this helps you in that capacity. Now, you know what? I was telling myself I wasn't going to do this. I'm not going to give into it, but now, damn it, I have to. Can you tell if I am just a lowly schlub human here, or is there something else going on with me?
Okay.
Be gentle, Debbie. Be gentle.
Yeah, and if it's a schlub human, I can handle it because
I already know where Mark is from, so I picked up on that actually a while ago. But
I'm from a Helena Handcart.
Shut up, Mark.
Yeah, no, you're starseed as well. You're from the Orion sector, so you've dealt with the duality consciousness for a while. So you've been through this rodeo again and again in Orion, and you've for whatever reason you've chosen to come to Earth. I guess maybe to impart the lessons you learned in Orion here. Here on, this Earth plane. There's quite a few Orion star seeds here because they've gone through this in their own star system, and now they've shifted to Orion Light. So they are masters at knowing how to go from darkness to light. So that's why we're seeing so many Orion souls incarnating here at this time. But yeah, you're here on a very big mission, just through disseminating information out there. So
this is where you get this pull to teach, Mark.
Yeah, I could see that. You mentioned the duality, and that just kind of struck me on more than one level because I am an identical twin. So you want to talk about duality with my brother who passed a few months ago, but there's duality there from being identical twins. With duality, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, with duality comes balance as well.
Absolutely.
It's balancing, and I've mentioned this on prior shows, but I'm going to mention it here, especially since you deal a lot with the Akashic Records, where about 12 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 13, 14 years ago, when I was trying to do meditation and journeying, and then I got out of it for so many years. But at the time I did it, I had one real successful journey where in my mind, I visited the Akashic Records. And, it was this big marble library hall with rows and rows of books and scrolls and whatnot. And I was led over to this one little section, this little teeny tiny section with a couple of shelves that was all of my lifetimes. And in there, I was able to pull two scrolls out to see two prior lives. They were both human lives. But in one of the lives I pulled out was a Roman emperor. And I didn't get the impression it was anybody famous, like anybody, because there was dozens of emperors that nobody ever heard of. But I was a Roman emperor at one point. And then I pulled out another scroll, and I was a lady in waiting during the medieval times. And
interesting. Okay.
I looked at that as, again, balance. And that seemed to be a big running theme in my life, where striking a balance, in one lifetime you had a man of power, and another you had a woman of servitude. And showing the different balancing in life. And when you mentioned the duality aspect, that's instantly what popped back into my mind.
And that's just stemming from your home system of origin, because Orion for millennia has been dealing with struggles between the light and the dark, and just the two extremes. It's something that's been inherent in your soul journey, and something that is still inherent in your life today, even with the relationship you had with your twin brother. So it's definitely a theme that's running through your life, and something that I think you've brought you chosen to be here to resolve it, but also I think to bring in the lessons you learned from Orion to help assist with the shift here on Earth. So you do have a very big mission here, as does Irene. Irene's mission is more of an educator. She is Syrian, so the Syrians, Sirius was the seat of the universal mystery schools that taught about universal law and universal concepts. So I'm getting the sense from Irene that she's very much an educator. Even though, and she's also a very gifted researcher as well. So, and I don't know Irene, but this is just what I'm picking up from her energy. So.
Would you say that's right, Mark?
I would say that's correct. Very much so. Although you teach in other ways. It's not like you're out there like teaching the masses or anything, but you do have your abilities of doing that teaching and sharing information with like a small worthy few, I should say. Worthy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to you're not going to go teach Mark the Ditch Digger to
I've taught you everything you know.
Well, that makes sense, because Irene is teaching on a higher level, so she's going to have intermediate to advanced students. She's not going to, teach the beginners. So.
Trust me. Then how did you get stuck with me?
No, I told you that months ago.
I know.
I know you're far more advanced.
Yeah, people are going, Mark, are you kidding us? Yeah.
No, he's not kidding you. I know.
Well, Debbie, you mentioned something, and if, how can I say this? You seem to have knowledge of different types of races from these different star systems, but you just said something I found really curious about the Orion system. Now, when you're talking about Orion, most people think of the Orion's belt. The three main stars in Orion, which, ancient civilizations seem to emulate with, like the pyramids of Giza, the complex at Tiwanaku, and how it's all laid out. So but even then, there are still other stars going out through Orion. But the belt is what most people focus on. Now, you mentioned something about the light and the dark, and I've heard stories about. Let's talk about the low life trash of the galaxy, the Greys, who seem to get a really bad rap, and that there are a lot of people who claim having really horrible experiences with the Greys. And they also seem to be coming from the Orion system, some of them anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that what you were referring to, dealing with both the lighter end and darker end coming from the same system?
Well, Orion is kind of like the melting pot of the galaxy. I mean, we just have, it has a variety of different races that are coexisting in this star system or this constellation, because it's a huge constellation. It has a lot of stars, and it's not just the 3 belt stars. There's also the stars that make up the rest of the Orion constellation. And my understanding from going into the Akashic records is that there's also a fair number of reptilian outposts in Orion, as well as the tall Greys, and they also play their part, in this, I guess, drama that we're all involved in right now, this duality drama. But yes, there is, they do have, I think they had conflicts in Orion, consistently between the Empire, or what I would, relate to the Empire, which would be the reptilian Empire, and the Greys were also involved with that, along with the humanoid races that just wanted to be free and wanted to, not be part of this overwhelming empire. So if you think of the Star Wars story, I believe Star Wars was based very much in the Orion saga, because there is this constant I guess conflict between the light forces and the dark forces. So, and yes, the Greys did play a part in that. Now Orion has since shifted to Orion Light. They've come to, I think, an evolution of their own. So that is no longer the case in Orion, but for a long time, for many millennia, they had this constant conflict. Orion is huge. They got a lot of different races. I mean, they got humanoids. They got they have quite a few reptilian, amphibian races, insectoids. Greys, mostly the tall greys, but they do have some of the smaller greys there as well, and like I said, quite a few reptilians. So it's an interesting mix. It's kind of like the America of the universe, I guess. So
now, and again, a lot of this, and this program is going really fast, so we've got about 5 minutes left. So I'm going to have to keep questions short on this. But in terms of the different species, is it fair to say that the different species are very much like the human species in that they all have their bad and good elements? Or are there species out there that are just really despicable?
I would say probably more the former, what you've mentioned first. I know of reptilians who are actually quite good. They're healers. They're of the light. And then I also know of Pleiadians who are very dark, So I would say any race has their good element and their bad element. I wouldn't call any race out there strictly good or strictly bad. I mean, I don't know of any bad Arcturians. Maybe there are. I haven't encountered them, but there might even be bad Arcturians. I don't know, but Arcturians are known to be very highly evolved, and so are Andromedans. As far as the specter of star races, but there might even be negative beings also from those star systems as well. So yeah, I would say there's good and bad. It's just like being human. There's good and bad humans. There's good and bad reptilians, greys. There's actually gray races who are actually quite, they're quite, I would say, positive, or they have a positive intent. But I think at least in our culture, here, on Earth, we tend to, I guess, associate gray aliens with
somebody wants attention.
I'm starting to get some interference here, so I'm going to have to. I guess our culture tends to associate, grays with being negative or evil. I don't know if I would call them completely evil. I think they have an agenda, and they certainly were trying to meet their agenda. But it's like any other group. There's good and bad.
And, I've heard so many stories of people who have had both good and bad experiences. I'll mention Whitley Strieber again, author of Communion and several other books, and he's talked about his experiences. He's had some very negative experiences, but even in some of those negative experiences, he's experienced tremendous spiritual growth. And a very complex relationship with these, quote, visitors, as he calls them. Because the one thing I like about Whitley is he doesn't want to jump to conclusions and label things. He never says they're aliens. He says he doesn't know. And other people who have had, I know people are having some horrible experiences with gray-type aliens. Other times people talk about, you have the grays and then the tall grays, which seem to be wiser, and the insectoids, who seem to be another level above that. And the other thing is there's also, they talk about humanoid-looking races too, but there's also a lot of evidence coming around that these beings can shapeshift. Like maybe how they're presenting themselves to us isn't exactly how they look, and maybe there is some manipulation going on there.
Yes, I think there's shapeshifters out there. I've encountered reptilian shapeshifters myself, actually in real life. So, it's that's a whole other story, which I'll save for another time. But yeah, I do believe, and so maybe some of that is not necessarily for negative reasons, but because maybe, as humans, we just wouldn't be able to accept a being in their true form. So they shapeshift to make themselves, I guess, look more pleasing to us or more familiar, so we don't get too freaked out. I don't know. There's, maybe as many reasons as there are beings out there, but yeah, they do have the capacity of shape-shifting. Now, do all of them shape-shift? I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe even the Arcturians on board the ship I was on, maybe they had to shape-shift or lower their vibration enough so I can even see them, because even at the, with them lowering their vibration, I had a hard time seeing them.
Sure.
So, so it was, so I think there's just a variety of reasons for, how they present themselves to us.
Well, we have officially run out of time, unfortunately, because
Okay.
I think we could have kept going on another hour on this. But Debbie, I really wanted to thank you for coming on the program. And now, do you have a website or a way for people, if they wanted to reach out to you about your classes or getting a Akashic record reading?
Yes, my website is www.debbiesolaris.com, DEBBIESOLARIS.com. And I also have my own radio show. I just started it. It's with Blog Talk Radio, the Galactic U radio network, and it's called Traveling Through the Stargate. I come on every other Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And my next show will be on April 18th. So, if people are so inclined, they can definitely catch me on that as well. So I really appreciate being on this show. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking to both you and Irene. It was very, very great questions. And
you're going to have to come back, Debbie. We're going to have to.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to discuss this even further, because I felt like we barely scratched the surface.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much.
Well, again, thank you for coming on. We loved having you. And everybody, thank you for listening to another edition of Paranormal UK Radio here on the Paranormal
And
UK.
we can be found.
Can I finish? Good Lord.
Just want to remind you, Mark.
Yeah. Paranormal UK Radio Network. We can be found listen live on Wednesday nights from 10 to midnight on our network at paranormalukradionetwork.com, TalkStream Live, and TuneIn Radio. And if you miss an episode, you can always listen to our podcast on Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, and Blog Talk. Did I get it all in?
And he says it because I can never remember any
Yes. Well, have a great night, everybody. And Debbie, Irene, we'll talk to you all soon.
Okay. Good night, everyone.